Hi everybody, I hope y'all are doing well. I hope y'all are having a good day today. So today I thought that I would go ahead and continue on talking about the identity series. And so I wanted to kind of focus on reality and how reality is created in order to understand how identity is created. So we have to go back a little bit and understand a little bit about how reality is created. Because essentially it's created in the same way that our identity is created. It's a complete illusion, and it's an infinite amount of possibilities, and any of which you can choose to be. So, but originally, reality, first of all, is not held somewhere in time and space. Everything is already here and now, all at once. So there is really no reality. Nothing is happening. There is really no movement. There's no time and space. And if you don't understand that part, you can even just look at science, and science will speak to you and explain to you everything about time and space and how time is relative. Time is really not happening the way it is felt, but time is needed in order to feel like this illusion is real. So you are going to feel the experience of time and space, but there is no time and space, and there is nothing happening. There is nothing moving or happening here. But all of that to say that reality is not what you think it is. That's the main thing. Reality can be whatever you want it to be. So reality is an infinite amount of possibilities. It's never ending. So how is that so, that reality is an infinite amount of possibilities? Well, I'd like to tie it into something called imagination. And I think we all have imagined different things, especially in childhood. If you can think back to when you were a child, what kind of imagination did you have? Some children were a little bit more imaginative than others. But for example, I did have quite a bit of an imagination, and I enjoyed spending a lot of time outside by myself, imagining different things like fairies, ghosts, just different things. So all of these different imaginations and stories that we create in our mind and imagine become felt like they're real. So when you're a child, and you're imagining and you're playing that there's these fairies and there's all these things, you completely get into that moment. And it's really felt like you are that person that's playing with fairies or whatever it is that you're imagining. So essentially it starts as imagination. And if you go back and read any kind of religious texts, for example in the Bible, and you just start to read the first part of it, like let's say Genesis or any of the other religious books of any kind, if you start to read the beginning parts of how everything came into creation, there is some key points. One of them is first desire and imagination and attention. So those are the things that I'm going to be focusing on here in this video. So everything that you've ever created, whether you know that you've created it or not, because most of us are creating things subconsciously, everything that you have created has initially come from your imagination. So whether that's good or bad in your opinion, it has come from you and your imagination. So many of you have probably heard about the law of attraction, and there's just different ways that people present that law of attraction, but there is a lot of truth to that. Now again, everything that I'm speaking of here in this series with identity is all within the illusion, and within the illusion you have the choice to create any identity and have anything of choice. So you're in the center of everything with every kind of possibility around you. It already exists outside of time and space, and you can choose to go into any other realm or version of yourself, if you want to call it, pretty easily. So this was not clear to me prior to me having a non-dual realization, and even after having a non-dual realization, there was a period of kind of solitude and introspection, and there wasn't a lot of creation going on. There was more of being and just enjoying. But when you're tired of that, or you want something different, the endless toolbox of creation opens for you. You can create anything that you want. So that's what becomes so beautiful. It only becomes more and more beautiful. Even the moments of being, when I was in that state of just kind of being in whatever was happening at the moment, was extremely beautiful. So there was just these moments of love and just wanting to just be in any moment that presented itself to me. But now over time, what has happened is I've actually realized how reality is being created. So in that case, I've kind of applied it to my own life. And again, this is all within the illusion. There is no character here that is, special or apart from everything that is one. So everything is one. I just want to clarify that. So everything that you see, whether it's the TV screen you're watching this on, or the ground out here, or the trees, all of it is you. It's happening within you. It's part of you. So nothing is apart. You are not a separate identity, a separate person. It's all one, expressing itself in every possibility it can. So let's kind of back up now just to talk about more practical day-to-day stuff that maybe you may relate to if you haven't had a non-dual realization. So main thing to see is just go back through your life and realize and see all the different ways your imagination has created your current reality, whether that's good or bad. For example, if I go back, to when I was a child and playing with the fairies and all this stuff, I still have memories of playing with those fairies that were completely in my imagination, yet they felt so real that I can still remember them today. Later on in my childhood, I started to, ride my bike and collect different little items and things that I found along the way. And a lot of the little items that I found were like bones and just different little animal bones and things like that. So I began to collect those, and out of my imagination of thinking, what could I do with these bones, came the idea of starting a museum. Now, how would a child start a random museum out of just some random little animal bones? Well, it happens in imagination. So while I laid there in my bed as a child, just thinking about how this would happen, I thought about all the items and things that I knew of that I could use to build that museum. And I did. I built a museum in the lot next to my house. And there I had like cinder blocks with large pieces of wood that I put the bones on, and it had a little entrance and people could pay to come see the bones in the museum. Now, that didn't just happen. That happened within my mind, in my imagination first. And so then paying attention to it and growing it and thinking, what could I use? All of that was created. So everything in your life has happened that same way, okay? Anything that happens or pops into your mind, like imagination, past memories, anything that just like a stroke of insight, anything that comes through your mind like that is not really original. It's already here and now. It's one of the many possibilities that could be. So when you have that imagination happening, you're imagining something that actually is possible, something that actually already exists. Okay, so it's already attainable. So anything that you can imagine, anything that you can remember, anything that you can brainstorm, or whatever you want to call it, is already in existence, and it's a possibility. So as long as you put your attention to it, it can manifest itself into what we see as physical reality, which is actually an illusion, but it is our physical reality, the way that we perceive it. So that's to say, if we kind of go through life, I was thinking about my own life. I find it so beautiful, but some of you may find it very mundane. To me, it is very beautiful because everything that I've imagined, I've created, and everything that I've imagined, I've essentially wanted to create. Yes, there are some things that we have and I have created in my own life that maybe just caused turmoil, that weren't exactly things that I would have consciously wanted to create. So those things are no longer being created. But if you're not conscious that you're creating anything, you will create a lot of things subconsciously that aren't so pleasant. Let's just put it that way. So if we go back to when I became an adult, I had ideas of what I wanted to be. So originally when I started college, I wanted to be a pharmacist. And so I was very excited about that. I signed up for college, went to the pharmacy program, started doing my pharmacy classes and everything like that. So that was the first 2 years. And what ended up happening was chemistry became very hard for me. And rather than, sticking it out and saying, okay, yes, this is something that's possible, and imagining in my head how this could become a possibility for me if I applied myself more, if I found a tutor, whatever it was. But in this case, I actually did the opposite. I decided that chemistry was not for me. It was too hard, and it was just not something that I enjoyed doing. Now, that could have been a good thing or a bad thing, but one thing I do know is that the imagination there stopped. So that story, that imagination stopped, and I quickly changed my major to psychology, and I was no longer doing pharmacy. But if I wanted to have done pharmacy and saw the possibility there and stuck with that imagination, then I probably would have been a pharmacist. That reality does exist. So anyhow, that's just one example of maybe a way that some realities manifest themselves in ways that we're not subconsciously aware of. Although, maybe that wasn't the profession for me that would have made me the happiest. There's no telling. Everything essentially in the end works out in your benefit. So there is nothing really to fear in this world. And even if you are fearful, if you know that this is an illusion and this is not actually happening to you or to this specific form, it's all imagination in itself. So it's like a dream. It's not really real, and has no consequence on you or really anybody else or anything. Everything is just one happening within you. So you have this choice. It's almost like a giant playground of this giant mind that imagines anything and everything possible, and it manifests itself into reality. So if we keep going, when I got married, I really wanted to have a baby. And so it wasn't so easy for me, and if any of you have watched some of my very earlier videos, I talked about this. So it wasn't easy for me to get pregnant. We tried and tried, and it was almost upon a year. But I didn't give up that hope. I told myself that no matter what happened, I was going to be a mother. So even if I couldn't conceive naturally through my body, then I would adopt, or I would find other means of conceiving a child. So I never gave up on that. And so I continued to imagine every possibility and seek help and do things. And even right underneath it being a year, I actually ended up pregnant, even with what they had found, some different medical complications that were preventing me from becoming pregnant. So if you have the imagination and you have the attention to what you want, it will manifest itself. And that will happen because it already does exist. You just have to keep in line with that. So after that, I continued on in life. There was a house that I really had wanted, and I had already thought in my head, this wasn't a house that already existed. It was just in my head, all the things that I wanted, because I knew that we would be house hunting soon. I already had in my mind kind of a checklist of everything that I wanted to have in my house. And so we started looking at houses, and I found the perfect house. It had literally everything that I wanted. The 5 bedrooms, the pool, the guest bedroom downstairs, everything that I wanted, the kitchen exactly the way I wanted. And this house was at the perfect price point, everything. And quickly I was in that house. So I manifested that house based on everything that I had imagined. And that was my manifestation, because everything's occurring through you. So it wasn't my husband's manifestation. It wasn't my daughter's. It wasn't anybody but mine. So this is another point to keep in mind. You have the control. Even if you think that you're married to a negative spouse or problematic children or whatever you want to say is impeding you manifesting and creating, that is not true. You have the power, you alone, and whatever you do shapes and changes everything, including those people around you. So when you have like hard or tough relationships with those around you, you're not getting along, this and that, really examine yourself, because you have the power. You control all of that. When you change something about the way that you're responding or reacting, everything around you changes. So I don't know who it was. Maybe it was Gandhi said that you change yourself and then you change the world. And I think Michael Jackson had a song like that, The Man in the Mirror. So everything starts with you. And from there, everything happens. So there is no, excuse for this. There is no excuse that my husband's not doing this or they're not doing that. Everything is happening within you. And here's the good part. This can always change and happen in any moment. So you can start now. Reality does not have a past, does not have a future. Everything's occurring right now. So if you want to change your identity or your reality right now, you can do it right now. It doesn't have any bearing on what happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future. Just this moment is what exists, and whatever you want for this moment is what's going to happen if you put your attention to it. So we have grace every single moment of our lives to do whatever we want to do. So if you don't like something that's happening, make a choice to change right now and it'll change. So I know it sounds easier said than done, but it is very, very easy. I just did not realize this until you start doing this. So what I will be talking about in these series is more about identity shifting. And essentially it's reality shifting, because when you change your identity, everything around you changes. Just like Gandhi and Michael Jackson have talked about, and many others have talked about. So I want you to keep that in mind. There is so much hope for anything that you want. And many of us have been pre-programmed with our childhood upbringings, beliefs, just all of these things that just don't fall away for us so easily, that are continuing to produce and create their own realities through our subconscious. But those things aren't really real. They're just basically like dreams that come at night. They're not really real. They're just as real as what's happening now. It's just a fleeting dream, a fleeting moment, a daydream that comes through. When you have a memory of something that happened, it's something that of course exists in reality somewhere in this illusion, but you don't have to identify with it if you don't want. There's so many other options. So it's like going into a store and being told that you can create and choose and make whatever you want. Or even better yet, have y'all played those video games where you go in and you create your avatar by changing their outfits, their faces, maybe even their personalities, their names, all of these things. So it's basically that. You have the choice to shift and change into whatever you want at any moment. So I want you to keep that in mind in this process of identity shifting. You have the choice. Everything is at the center with you. Everything's happening through you. You are actually the center of this universe. So keep that in mind when you are choosing what you want to do. And there is no limitation. So whatever you imagine, if you can imagine it, it can be a reality. So I wanted to go back to imagination. Anytime you decide to start a business, maybe start a new relationship with somebody, do anything, all of that manifested itself from your imagination. So nothing is happening apart from anything else. Everything is one. So you can't isolate anything. If you say, how did this happen? It didn't just happen. It appears that it just happens, and what's actually happening is that it just actually happens. But in our perception, it's happening in relation to something else, because everything is one and there's this connection happening. So to the person, it definitely feels that there's a cause and effect, that there's a point where you chose this, that there's an imagination that you had that created this. And that is just the way that it works, and that's the way that it's felt. Of course, essentially what's really happening is nothing. But it's all there, and this grand illusion is happening in such a perfect manner because of all these different laws of the universe that are governing it. So like something as simple as time or gravity or any of these things create the illusion. Even the sense of having memories, of having an imagination, of having a past, of having a future. All of those are false, but they create a very real felt sense of reality. So that is why we feel that this is so real. But when you see through it, you can see through it completely, and you can never unsee that. And then you can only kind of sit with that. And what happened with me is I kind of sat with that, and it was absolutely beautiful how this is just all happening, and it's a miracle to come to find out that basically everything's just being created in the moment for whatever you want. It's just pick and choose. So nothing's really happening, but you get to pick and choose in this store of endless possibilities for yourself. So what are you going to choose? What do you want? When I look back at my life, even though I wasn't conscious that I was creating a lot of these things, I can see where I created it. And I can see I've actually done pretty good, you know, and it's not me, the person. This is all just happening. The universe, God, consciousness, awareness, whatever you want to call this, has a perfect design. And it's always seeking to grow. It's always seeking to change. It's always seeking to move to the next thing. And you'll kind of see that in your own life. You don't really stay stagnant very long. And if you do stay stagnant, that's where you get some unhappiness. That's where you get some problems, some health problems. That's where you get all kinds of problems, you know, people not wanting to live, people, you know, all of these things happen when you resist growth, when you don't want that. So what essentially life is trying to do is trying to grow, change, evolve, have all the different experiences that exist. So while I might be in one reality at this moment making this video, whatever choice I make next, or whatever ends up happening next, could be a whole nother reality, a whole nother place and time in this timeline of no time, really, because there is no time. Like I say, it's just all already there. But you can kind of just shift from one thing to another if you want. You can stay with the timeline that you're in. There is just no limitations to this. And so what I've seen in this past maybe just a month or two is a dramatic change in how quickly things can manifest. So after I had this realization, I realized how beautiful life is and how everything's just, you know, happening, and it's an illusion and there is no self. And that alone blew my mind. But come to find out a little bit longer after everything was being embodied, how creation occurs and how you can just pretty much shift from any reality to the next and like manifest anything very quickly. So when I originally had the awakening, I thought, this is beautiful, but it's never going to make you a millionaire. It's never going to put a bunch of money in your bank account. It's not something that changes you in that way. But that's not true. It is something that can change you in that way if you decide that. It's whatever you want. So within this past month, I've literally manifested stuff that I haven't been able to manifest my whole life. And a lot of it's been material, and that may sound a bit selfish, but literally just things just happen out of nowhere, and everything's being changed and replaced, and my whole environment is being changed constantly, from one thing to another. Old is really just falling away, new is happening. So whatever I want literally manifests itself in as little as like a day. So it's pretty crazy, and I just wanted to share this stuff with you because it is just life-changing. And it's not something particular to having had a realization, although I can understand it better. It's not something that only I can do or only awakened people can do, which I'm not awakened, you're awakened, and we're all one. So essentially what you're doing is what I'm doing. We just have a different perspective or understanding of it, but it's all being done in exactly the same way. So there's nothing that I'm doing that you're not doing. It's just our understanding and perception and feeling behind it that really shapes how we see what's happening. So while other people may say that they have bad luck or good luck, that's that. But I could say that, you know, I'm manifesting or creating this reality. So it's really from your perspective what's happening. But in any case, you are creating constantly. You're moving from one reality to another, from one identity to another. You might be going into the past, you might be going into the future in your head, you might be manifesting things you want, or maybe manifesting a life that is full of pain and suffering that you don't want. So you really have to examine all of that stuff. So let's go back to imagination. So what I'd like for you to do, if you're wanting to start to create your own reality or your own identity, is begin to imagine the type of person that you want to be. What does that person look like? What does that person talk like? What does that person dress like? What does that person eat? What kind of body shape does that person have? What kind of house does that person live in? How do they live? How do they clean? What kind of job do they have? Do they volunteer anywhere? Do they have any interests or beliefs? Do they have children? Are they married? Do they have pets? What are their hobbies? You know, all of these things you want to think of. So just like as if you're getting to play, see, I used to do acting many years back. So if you're trying to play a role, you know, maybe a method actor, you're trying to play a certain character, you really have to embody that character before you get on stage or on screen. You have to really get to know that character in every way. How do they eat? How do they laugh? All of these things you have to know and you have to embody. So I'm not saying to start being someone else, just start imagining what you want yourself to be. And from there, creation will begin. Give it attention, and on my next video I will talk about how to do the next steps. So for right now, your main thing is to start with imagination. That is where everything starts. Even when you read, like I say, religious texts, it always talks about there being a void or it being black or darkness, and out of that there was this lack or wanting more. And so whatever it was, God or the universe or whatever it is created, began having a desire and then started giving it attention. And then like the Big Bang, they say that it, you know, there was energy, everything was spinning round and round. So there was energy, there was attention there was imagination and desire. So start with those in your life. Start imagining what it is that you want for yourself, for your identity. Start giving it attention, spending time thinking about it, visualizing it, closing your eyes and laying there and visualizing that lifestyle. And then start giving it energy. Start making some changes. If the person that you want to be doesn't eat junk food, get all the junk food out of your house. That's so simple. Why would you continue to live in a different identity or reality than the one that you actually want? It's very easy to change. Just get that stuff out and start being that person now. So like I say, at any moment you can choose to become and do or live a different reality. So in this moment I can become a healthy person even though I've ate junk food my whole life. In this moment it's a brand new moment. Every moment is fresh and new. So right now I can be a healthy person. I can walk in and I can eat in my house fruits, vegetables, get rid of everything, and now I am a healthy person. So I have to focus my attention on that and know and say I am a healthy person and do those actions. You have that power in any moment to do those things. The only thing holding you back is your own self, your mind, and your emotions behind it. When you think that you can't do it, when you go back into the past and tell yourself, oh no, I've been on diets before, I've tried this and that and it's never worked, then you've already decided, you've already put that block in. Just like I put that block in when I decided that chemistry was too hard for me and I couldn't do pharmacy. I immediately stopped that creation. Although a healthy version of me or a pharmacist version of me already does exist. I just didn't choose it in that moment. I blocked it. So what are you going to block and what are you going to allow? That's the question. So you are endless, limitless, a powerful creator that can change and manifest anything at any moment, because every moment is new, every moment is fresh, every moment has full potential for anything in this infinite universe to occur. So I just wanted to share that with you for today. On the next video, if you want to check back, I'm going to be talking about the next steps in creating an identity, which are going to be around our words. Let's see, I hope that was still recording. So it's going to be around our words and what we speak. So start to think about that. Maybe for the next video, what does words or putting things into the universe in a verbal way have to do with creating or changing anything? And if you want some clues, why don't you explore your own religion? What does it say about the spoken word? So come back and check out my next video. I'm trying to post on a weekly basis. I don't know if y'all know, but I have a full-time job, lots of different responsibilities outside of that. So it's hard for me sometimes to post on a regular basis, but I definitely enjoy this more than anything. So I will probably make it my goal to continue to try to post on a weekly basis, so long as it all works out that way. So that's the plan, just to keep posting on a weekly basis about identity. And I hope that you will come back. If you're new here and you like this sort of content, please subscribe to my channel, comment down below if you have any questions or need anything from me. Feel free to email me at any time. I have that information in my description box as well. Okay, well, thank you, and y'all have a great rest of your day.